Welcome into the Grace Point Daily Podcast. My name is Jeremiah Johnson. We are here to do a verse by verse today. Dr. R.B. Maynard is in the house. So we exist to bring you daily encouragement for your daily walk with Christ. Rick Maynard, each and every week, faithful as what, Dr. R.B. as? Can't think of anything witty to say right now.
I can't think of anything either.
Oh, here we go. We're going to get in the Word, and we probably need to get in the Word because it's post-election day today, and a lot of chaos going on.
Post-election blues. I don't care if you're blue or red. It's the blues today, you know. So.
Yes, exactly. I do want to have a somewhat thought-out rant, if you will, number one. And I was like, I want to make sure that I say this on a format where I have to be held accountable for it someday. So number one, my comments regarding the election is to the Christians, I would say, I feel like the last few years, and the last maybe year or two, I think we put a little too much stock and trust in a particular individual, one named President Donald Trump. I'm annoyed by that. I felt like he was kind of the savior and the answer, and he still might get elected, etc. But I just feel like everyone thought he was like a Jesus on earth. Woke up every day and prayed in tongues an hour and read his Bible and all that kind of stuff. So, to the church, I say today we put our trust in the Lord again, and just like any other Christian around the world would have to do in whatever economic or democracy they would find themselves in. We have to keep in mind that there still really is dictatorships across the world, and that we're not existing in, etc. And two, I would, without again, be held accountable for these words, I would like to personally call out the prophets today. Because there were those prophets that, Trump's just going to sweep. It's going to be an overwhelming victory. So I say to the prophets today, I would have a good little sit down with the Lord and just kind of think about your ministry and the things that you say. One being, Dutch Sheets, those kind of guys. Again, this is on Facebook Live right now, and my words are being held accountable. I would, if those guys gave me a call, be like, I would really kind of think about what you're saying and, what's going, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of those guys were like, Trump's just going to sweep it. It's just going to be, the blessings are going to come in and woo, And I think, prophesying is such a dangerous art form, art form with that. It is. But it's a dangerous thing because I think you have to really balance your emotion, your humanity. I know my wife today, I consider a very spiritual person that has an ability to hear from the Lord. And she was writing down things today, but she's like, I'm going to write these down and I'm going to date them. And I want to say them, in a public platform of some sort, but I'm not going to, because it can be controversial, but I'm willing to step in that controversial today. So those of you that are prophets, I follow some of you, and I've said it, I'll say his name twice now, a guy like Dutch Sheets or something like that. And because the other people, I know the last midterm election, a lot of people were like, the red tsunami's coming, meaning all these Republicans are going to get voted in, and it did not happen. And I never really heard, we got to hold our feet to the fire, and myself included. So that's why I say this on a podcast that maybe it's not listened to by millions, but can be accessed by anyone in the world. I say it on Facebook Live today that however many people listen to it or not. But now, it's out there in the internet for anyone to grab for the rest of my life. Number one, stop putting your trust in people. Put your trust in God. Number two, prophets, think about what you say before you say it. And is it ear tickling? Is it, and I don't know, and they're not going to, what accountability do they have? I'm not for sure some of those as to what they say. Make sure that you have good accountability in your life. I know at the end of the day, for me, that's why I get stressed out, or because I know I have a board, I have a church that I have to answer to at the end of the day, and I can't just do whatever I want to do. Yeah.
Some of the most dangerous words to say are "Thus saith the Lord," because we say those things like it's God speaking. It's one thing if you have a thought, I think that someone's going to win or somebody, I think. But when you start declaring that the Lord has given me this word, in simple terms, it turns you into a false prophet.
Yeah.
That is, we've said it many times, the true test of a true prophet is, does the prophecy come true? Mm-hmm. I mean, it has to line up with the Bible. Does it come true? Those are if it doesn't, you declare. I'm not going to say whoever it is, you are a false prophet, but you missed it here. You said, "Thus saith the Lord." I would think that's very damaging to your reputation. What does that do for future things that you believe God is saying?
Yeah.
And then it's easy, when we were talking about this morning, we kind of live in our Republican Donald Trump
our
bubble.
Red bubble.
Right. I mean, we live there because most of my friends on Facebook agree with what I say and me with them. But, bottom line is, and I said it, we talked about it this morning at home, but bottom line is, I'm getting up. I'm going to work today.
Yep.
And I'm going to be at church tonight, and I'm going to be at church on Sunday. And all the things that we're worried about, if Biden wins, if Trump wins, all the things you're worried about on either side of that, you can worry about it all you want to, but we don't know till it comes.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet this is going to happen if he gets it. We don't know that. So just, my advice is get up and start your day just like you have before. Mm-hmm. And I can't go back and look at all the presidents in my lifetime. Man, it was so good under that president. Man, it was so bad under that president. I've just lived my life all these years, getting up, going to work, going to church, so we can cry the blues all we want to, but somebody's not going to be happy.
That's my hot take and perspective. So you give me a call, reach out to me. And Stella Maynard says here on Facebook, I woke up and looked at Rick Maynard and said, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
No, she just said, well, I woke up this morning. It's going to be okay. Yeah. Singing in my head.
Yeah. You're a false prophet this morning. So, well, and it's very relevant because we're talking about kings, and there were good kings and there were bad kings. And you know what? God sent some of them. Some of those, not some of them. If we truly believe that God's in control and God appoints leaders, that doesn't mean he approves of them.
Yes.
He just appoints them for a time, for maybe if we don't get the guy we like, maybe it's a lesson to us. Maybe we need to sit back and say, well, what's God trying to say through this bad guy? If you think Trump's bad, if you think Biden's bad, whatever it is, what's God trying to say and to teach us through all of this? So, anyway, are we done with that?
Yep, I'm done with my rant, yes.
Okay. Well, 1 Kings chapter 20. And this is, it's just funny because we've gone through so many political things here recently. And then when you're in the book of Kings, I mean, that's exactly, it's political moves. It's going to war to state your case. It's Israel winning, and then it's, somebody else winning, and it's good kings, bad kings, all those types of things. So it's relevant. It's not ironic. It's relevant.
Yes.
But 20 verse 1, now Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, mustered his entire army. Yeah, that's a new word for you this morning. Army.
You sound like Joe Biden over there.
Yeah. Thank you. Accompanied by 32 kings with their horses and chariots, he went up and besieged Samaria and attacked it. It doesn't really tell us what that war was about. We want to know today, well, why did we do that? Vietnam is a good one. How many people have said we lost all those men in Vietnam and nobody knew what we were fighting for? Now, if you're a political person, maybe you could really get into all that and the reasons behind it and the importance of it. But that's why there was so much protest on that war, because nobody really knew what we were fighting for. So, but and the majority of the time, as we've read through here, it deals with one king. This guy did this. This guy said that. Then this other king came along, and they were fighting against each other. But now it's talking about 32 kings at one time are coming together to make decisions. I guess it'd be more like Congress instead of kings in our day. But verse 2 and 3, he sent messengers into the city to Ahab, king of Israel, saying, this is what Ben-Hadad says. Your silver and gold are mine, and the best of your wives and children are mine, or the same as mine. In other words, this is, whether it's a declaration of war, and that some of them said it's more like demanding like a tax. You would come in and say, as a new president or something, I'm raising income tax to X amount of dollars, or I'm raising Social Security tax to so many dollars. But this is an actual, this is going to be as if I own you. Whether he literally came in or would come in and just take the wives and children. And I kind of like that. I just want the best of the wives and the best of the children. I don't want all your wives, just the best of those. So I guess that'd be a good time to say, my wife is terrible. Don't take her. Unless you really did want to get rid of her, maybe.
Right.
But anyway, it's kind of like a demand for taxes is what it's saying. It's the same as mine. What you have, your money, in other words, is the same as mine. Whether it's an individual or whether it's a government that comes in.
Like you have a truck. What is it, a
72,
and you got a nice one and you got a bad one. So they would have took the good one.
Right, they would have took the good one. Yep. 20 verse 4, the king of Israel answered, just as you say, my lord the king, I and all I have are yours. Isn't it amazing how quickly somebody can, and again, we don't always have all the words. Maybe there was a long conversation, but it really sounds like this guy just says, oh, okay, if you want the wives and children, and, we're just going to, here it is. Okay, we're all in agreement. 25 and 6, the messengers came again and said, this is what Ben-Hadad says. I sent to demand your silver and gold, your wives and your children, but about this time tomorrow, I'm going to send my officials to search your palace and the houses of your officials. They will seize everything you value and carry it away. So this is one of those situations where you agree to one thing. You're like, okay, we'll pay 20% tax, and then they're like, man, they sure gave into that awful easy. If they'll give 20, maybe they'll give 30. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like getting an estimate on, building a house or something. And I'm like, okay, that's $200,000. That's going to be $200,000. Okay, that sounds good. And then what do? I go home thinking, man, I should have said 220.
Right.
I should have said 230. They took that. It's in the real estate business. It's offer and counter offer. It's like we get to thinking if they accept our offer too quick, we probably could have got more out of them.
Yeah.
and that's kind of the way this is here, man. If they're going to give in that easy, then hey, we'll just take. And this has to do with, it says, they will seize everything you value and carry it away. So this is, if they come in here and say, I want your little planner here, it's like, well, okay. I mean, that's not a problem. But it really is about the things that you value. And one of the commentaries even said it had to do with their Bible, their Torah. And, I thought about the thing where we see people running out of houses, their house catches on fire, and it's like, what are you going to take? And that's always that kind of a trick question, kind of a question just to see how you'll react. Mm-hmm. And, okay, if your house is on fire and you can take one thing, what are you going to, and people...
my safe.
Yeah, my money, my pictures. I got money in the drawer in there. If you were sentimental, I want my pictures. Why? Because they can't be replaced. Mm-hmm.
I got those on the Facebook page.
Yeah. Well, that's on. You can always find them today. So, but when you think about back then, the Torah, not everybody had a copy.
Yeah. Yes.
And
man.
So, if you think, and maybe you've worked hard, maybe you've saved. I mean, they probably had to buy at a high price their copies back then. I mean, they were handwritten.
Right.
They had to be. When they wrote copies of that, there has to be a scribe who watches you write to make sure that you don't intentionally or accidentally even leave out some words in there. So, it was a very valuable thing. It very well might be. I mean, they think it meant the Torah itself. And most of us wouldn't think, I mean, honestly, I love my Bible, but I probably wouldn't,
Right.
And why is that? It can be replaced in our world. So we don't have
Americans have 10 of them or whatever, 12.
More. Yeah, and it's on your phone. It's on your computer. I mean, for us, it's so easily accessible. We lose respect or honor for that.
And I have it memorized. So
Well, yeah. That's if we need to know anything, we'll just come to you.
So I told Luckily Shepins the other day. I was like, "Oh man, I forgot my Bible."
Yeah,
it's all right. I got it memorized.
Yeah. Well, some of the students of that time did memorize.
Had to, right?
That was part of
That's
their
amazing.
Training and becoming a rabbi or whatever was memorizing. So, and that that thing about taking something you value, something that means something to you. It's a little bit like breaking your spirit, and we've talked about that here with Corona and people having to stay home, people not being able to see their families. And I'm not being a conspiracy theory that was the intention, from the beginning. But it has broken a lot of people's spirits.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Thanksgiving
absolutely.
has changed. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not having the big gathering this year because there's still some family members who they're not going to go out, and they're not going to be in a gathering if everybody doesn't have a mask on, and and I'm not getting on the air here and bashing that. I'm just saying that it's broken some people's, and not only the people who
absolutely.
Not only the people who don't want to come, but the people who would come. But now it's like nobody's going to be there. So there has been a little bit of a breaking of the spirit. And and even in the election, I don't care. There are Democrats and Republicans, and really half right now. I mean, it's really split.
Yeah.
I mean, half
Divided.
the people are going to be unhappy
Yes.
when this thing plays out. So it's about, and you don't break somebody's spirit usually with one time. We talk about parents with their children and how you can, tell them they're worthless, they're never going to amount to anything. Well, that usually doesn't happen in a one-time thing. That's usually not one day you told one of your kids, you're just worthless. And from that point on, their life was horrible. It's usually a daily, monthly, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Repetitive.
All I ever heard from my dad was how I was never going to amount to anything.
Yep.
And then you grow up believing it. You break a spirit, and that person then grows up believing that they're never going to amount to anything. Mm-hmm. And they might as well just take this crummy job, marry this crummy person because I don't deserve any better. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's part of what's happening here. Verse 7, the king of Israel summoned all the elders of the land and said to them, see how this man is looking for trouble. When he sent for my wives and children, my silver and my gold, I did not refuse him. This is a king. He's demanding things, and they're giving in, but that's really not what Ben-Hadad wanted. Ben-Hadad wanted war. I mean, he was a warrior king, if you would. He wanted war. So it's like, it's kind of like if I'm bidding a job and I really don't want the job, what am I going to do? I'm going to bid high. And it's like, well, why don't you just bid it where you're trying to do something because that's not really what you want in there. And in his case, it's I don't really want your stuff. I don't really want money. I just didn't want to do the job. In my case, if I was as a contractor, but in his case, he wants something else. He wants war. He doesn't want their stuff. So they're coming in there and you got to go along to get along.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it's probably easier just to say yes than it would be to fight this thing. Well, if I say yes, then we don't go to war and we won't lose people. So would we, and again, it's today's culture, it's today's thinking. Do I want to be a slave or do I want to fight for freedom? And sometimes it's easier to think, well, at least if I'm a slave, I'm alive. I might die in the fight.
Yeah. So
what do? We cow down to whatever's the easiest thing. Right now, how many people are not coming back to church after the virus and after church is shut down? A lot. And so a lot of those people that are not coming back have they've gotten used to that now.
Yep.
And that's
habitual. A habit has been developed.
Yeah. It's easy if you're not in love with church, it's easy to not go to church. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easy. I've had times, and you probably have too, even as a pastor, you've had times where it's like, I just don't want to go tonight, not because you're mad, not because it's just like, I don't want, but then there's a habit that develops out of that where it's like, it's okay just to do the easy thing. I mean, when the president or whoever comes in and says no churches, a lot of people are like, okay.
See, I was struggling in my church attendance, and I was like, well, if I become a pastor, then I have to go.
You have to go. Yeah.
So now it just fixed the whole problem for me.
Yeah, it's like there was an old joke, something about the mom coming in and waking the kid up and saying, get up, it's time for church. And he's like, give me one good reason. Well, because you're the pastor. Yeah. So anyway, we'll move on. But You know, you can go along to get along, and that does work in a sense. And I brought this up as an illustration. When I worked on the ambulance service, I would have a drunk in the back, and a lot of drunks, they want to fight everybody. They don't even need a reason. They just, well, I'll whip your butt. I mean, you know, and it's like, I would, instead of saying, well, you go ahead and try it, or, hey, I got you strapped down, you know, I mean, I didn't get in that big deal. It's like, well, you probably could, you know. Well, they don't, it's almost like they don't know what else to say, because they wanted to fight. They wanted an argument about it. And it happens sometimes, and I don't know, somebody can, you know, hey, call in, comment if you don't think it's right. But with Alzheimer's, dementia, those kind of things, sometimes it's easier to just agree with that person who is asking I remember my dad one time, he never really had, I'd say he was starting to get some dementia, but he would have lots of moments of clarity, and so he didn't suffer with that a long time. But one time he said, what'd you do with that house? And I said, well, what house? He said, that greenhouse up there on the hill. And I said, you know, instead of saying, Dad, you never had a greenhouse up on the hill, I just said, we sold it. Well, I thought that would take care of it. And then he said, well, what'd you do with the money? So he was, but I just told him, I said, we put it in your account. And he was like, okay, and just went on, you know. Well, is it worth it with that dementia patient, that Alzheimer's patient, to try to get into an argument, to try to convince them? And they don't, I mean, that greenhouse on the hill was as real to him as if it were real. And why get into an argument about things? Sometimes it is easier sometimes just to say, okay, and move on. You know, I hate controversy. I hate getting into some big, long, drawn-out argument with somebody. And then we get on Facebook and argue, which is even crazier, I think.
Yeah.
Because somebody wrote something down, and so, you know, you write something down to respond to that. I mean, it's foolishness. If I've ever said anything, as soon as I see it go that direction, I just stop.
Yep.
Because it's not going to end. They're not going to change my mind. I'm not, especially in a written conversation. That's when people get really mad, because you can't see
facial expressions,
right?
Emotion.
Yeah, kind of like wearing a mask now. We could talk, and people would think we were mad, you know.
Yeah.
So, verse 9. So he replied to Ben-Hadad's messengers, "Tell my lord." No, wait a minute. Back up. 28. The elders and the people all answered, "Don't listen to him or agree to his demands." So, you know, you agreed to something that came up, and then your board and your congregation is like, "Pastor, don't cow down to that. That's not what God wants for us." So, verse 9. So he replied to Ben-Hadad's messengers, "Tell my lord the king, your servant will do all you demanded the first time, but this demand I cannot meet." They left and took the answer back to Ben-Hadad. So, and this is a cowing down. Instead of like saying, hey, I'm a king and you're a king, what makes you better than me? You know, it's like, I'm a governor and you're a governor. That doesn't make you a better governor because your state's bigger, or, you know, any of those kind of things. So it's like saying, well, I mean, he calls him your servant, or, you know, I'm your servant, my lord the king, and this demand I can't meet. In other words, the people won't let me. So it's like, okay, I'll go tell him that. But then it's, you know, it's all this, my lord the king. And I mean, it's still, he partially did things right, I guess. 2010, then Ben-Hadad sent another message to Ahab, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if enough dust remains in Samaria to give each of my men a handful." Swearing by the gods, Ben-Hadad, well, neither one of these guys are any good. I mean, Ahab is not a good king. So, you know, a lot of times in these controversies, you can say, well, this is the good king, this is the bad king. But these guys, neither one of them are good guys. So we don't have, like, I mean, it almost sounds like we ought to be really rooting for Ahab. This is Ahab, the husband of Jezebel. This is not one good guy and one bad guy. Neither one of these guys are any good. So when it's talking about, this would be an expression, in other words, of war. May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if enough dust remains in Samaria to give each one of my men a handful. In other words, I'm going to not just win a battle, I'm going to totally devastate your place. And I thought about this in the context of, we don't see these kind of things today. I mean, that's why a lot of people don't like Old Testament, because, well, that wouldn't happen in today's world.
Right.
Well, have you seen some of the pictures of, in whatever, Iraq or some of those places that they have a war? I mean, they totally destroy the city. And in Jerusalem, I mean, Jerusalem's been destroyed and rebuilt. And, our only concept of that would be, okay, somebody comes to Carthage and invades Carthage, burns down every building, completely destroys Walmart. What would we do then? I mean, we would all never survive without Walmart.
I'd have to go get a bunch of leaves.
Yeah. yeah, that's for sure. But, the courthouse, I mean, every time I'm up there, I just look at that building like, man, that is an awesome building. Not just because I'm a Carthage fan, but it is an awesome building. Can you imagine if we had some kind of war and they came through here and burnt the courthouse down, or, got the wrecking balls out and just leveled it? I mean, and that's what he's talking about here. If may God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I don't completely destroy the city. So, 20:11, the king of Israel answered, "Tell him, one who puts on his armor should not boast like one who takes it off." And this is, all of a sudden now, he's gotten all brave in this. So that phrase actually means you might put on your armor, but that doesn't mean you'll be alive to take it off. You can act all bold and tough and like it's not. Well, again, we've been dealing with the election last night, today, for who knows how long, but we've been dealing with that. And all these people who, Trump's got it. This is kind of that same expression. Just because you think in your local area everybody's a Trump lover, and we've seen Trump train and Trump flags and Trump signs and all those kinds of things, it doesn't mean that just because you saw all that he's going to be the next president. And in this scenario, it's saying just because you put on your armor, because you put it on thinking you're going out to battle and you're coming back with your armor on, don't act like that, because you could be the guy laying out there in the field with your armor on that you thought was going to save you, and it's not going to save you. So he starts getting bold there. But Ben-Hadad, verse 12, heard this message while he and the kings were drinking in their tents, and he ordered his men, prepare to attack. So they prepared to attack the city. And this is battle plans that are being made while they're drunk. I mean, it doesn't say there that they're drunk, but later on it talks about them being drunk. And so this is, I mean, isn't it amazing that you'd get a group of guys together and they would all think, I mean, they're drinking, they're, probably having a toast and all that kind of stuff. I mean, can you imagine making those plans while you're drunk? I mean, it's bad enough to make all these bad plans while you're sober and sensible and all of those things. And I think sometimes even in our times today, we were like, man, he must have been drunk to make that decision.
Yeah.
Congress, they all must have been a big drinking party before they brought that law, in. Why else would anybody do that had any sense about them? One more verse, verse 13. Meanwhile, a prophet, we've been talking about the prophets this morning, but meanwhile, a prophet came to Ahab, king of Israel, and announced, and here's the words we just talked about. It doesn't say, we don't use thus saith the Lord. Probably King James would say that, but it says, this is what the Lord says. Do you see this vast army? I will give it into your hand today, and then you will know that I am the Lord. This is probably one of those prophets, if you go back, that Elijah hid in the caves. It said he had 50 in 2 different caves. This is probably one of those. We don't know well, it was Obadiah who actually hid him under Elijah's reign or whatever. We don't really know who it is. The Hebrew says this vast army, he calls it a mob. And I thought, in that, again, that's relative today with rioting and all the things. It's a mob. You get a mob mentality even. And so, but this is the prophet coming to Ahab, who Ahab is not a godly man. You would think, why wouldn't the prophet come to some godly king and say, I want you to intervene in this? But God had a purpose, and in the election right now, I mean, obviously I'm a Trump supporter, but it doesn't matter now. I can say that now because you can't go vote now. So, I mean, it's not, anyway, I don't think it's politically incorrect, but it's kind of that same idea that whatever happens, God still reigns.
Mm-hmm.
God's still in control. I may not be happy about it, but it says, do you see this vast army? I'll give it into your hand today, and you will know that I am the Lord. We need to keep that in mind. He is the Lord. It doesn't matter what happened. He didn't get caught off guard. Mm-hmm. He didn't make a mistake in this. And we can all say, I mean, it's easy to say, well, must have been God's will for Biden to be president or Trump to be president. Must have been God's will. Well, we always say that if it's the guy we want. Yeah. But if it's not the guy we want, well, man, this world's going to fall apart now because God's will wasn't done. And, in bad leadership, we need to sit back and say, okay, it's not who I would have wanted, and I can find all kinds of reasons why he's the bad guy or whatever. I can find all the reasons, but we all really need to sit back and say, if this really wasn't who God would have wanted, I still need to realize that God's in control on this, and God has something to teach me through this guy's presidency, and take it like that instead of saying, well, wasn't God's will, so we're really in for trouble. Yeah. I think God's people, regardless of the economy, regardless of gas prices, anything else, we all just need to keep saying, the Lord is Lord here. That it's not Biden and it's not Trump, and the world's not going to fall apart tomorrow. We're not going to wake up in a different world today if Biden won instead of Trump. We're still living in the same world today, and it's not even going to happen until January. So it's not like everything changed today. So anyway, I think we can still live in peace. Yeah. As Christian people, we can still live in peace. We can still come to church and worship. Hey, might that change? It might, but I'm not going to worry about it till it does. I'm going to keep doing what I do every day until. Don't worry about it until it's time to worry about it, and then don't worry about it.
We're not. One thing I was pondering this morning in the midst of our culture, but it's just that we're not above reproach as the people of God. Is that we are not above reproach? That what does that mean? Is that God rebukes and corrects those He loves, and there's nothing special about us that God at times doesn't have to shift or change or do things to capture our attention, to get us closer to Him, and. Maybe I'll squeak a little, secret out there. Maybe kind of Pastor Rachel was really talking about today. It was like, are you hearing any Christians, people complaining about the lost? Was any outcry today about, oh God, the lost, those that are going to hell, those who don't have Jesus? Or is what's happening in our culture more about, oh, now it's going to affect my comfort. It's going to affect me. And that is an attitude shift that God will rebuke and correct and bring the church to a place of dependency, to make sure that's the mentality and the mindset, not just a pursuit of blessing, but a pursuit of, of really God in the way it should be.
Yeah, sometimes the biggest worry is, how much is this going to cost me in money? We're not. Sometimes our biggest worry is, how is this going to affect my religious freedom? How is this going to affect the church? The souls, how's it going to affect that? But most of the time, I heard my dad say one time when Bill Clinton, and my dad, I wouldn't say he's diehard Democrat, Republican, or whatever, but he made a statement one time, well, he's a good president, and this was in the middle of the Lewinsky, all that stuff that was going on, and they were impeaching him and all of that. And it was right in the middle of that. And I said, Dad, have you not seen all this stuff that's going on right now with him? And I wasn't really into politics, and he was like, yeah, but the economy's good. That was kind of, and my dad was a godly man. That was a misstep on his part probably, but I'm just saying, so many people, that is the issue. It's money. So anyway, I'm going to wake up in a peaceful world tomorrow in my own world. So
Isaiah, come over here real quick. Say hi to everyone on Facebook Live real quick. Hey, it's just the Verse by Verse, Grace Point Daily Podcast, Verse by Verse, Dr. R.B. Maynard. Everyone who's watching live can say hi. Look in there and say hi. Hi. We'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good day.